Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Omini Udan. Nigeria, Africa's biggest economy, is in recession for the first time after 2016. This is largely due to slow growth since COVID-19 hit the economy hard at the time the international oil price crashed to a very low ebb. Nigeria normally accounts for an average crude oil output of 2 million barrels a day, but the coronavirus pandemic and low oil price forced down production to 1.4 million barrels, creating huge deficit in the entire economy. At third quarter 2020, the gross domestic product contracted for the second consecutive quarter by 3.62%, says the Statistician General of the Federation on Twitter. The oil sector contracted by 13.8% in the third quarter against Nigeria's growth of 6.49%, and non-oil sector shrank by 2.57% in the month of June, July, and August 2020. The country is still battling to rise over the big impact of COVID-19 that collapsed economy in all areas, and then the NSAS protest came with hard knock on the economy again. However, with the 2.3 trillion economic sustainability funds, Nigeria seems ready to exit recession when the entire fund is pushed into the economy, which includes 75 billion naira youth intervention fund, the flag off of the Young Farmers Scheme, among others, to create and generate jobs. Nigeria will soon exit recession. Tonight, on NTA Tuesday Live, what are the national plans to reflate the economy? This and more is our business tonight. But before then, let's take a listen to this background report put together by Leah Katun Babatunde.
The journey into 2020 seemed bright. Growth was impressive. The Nigerian Stock Exchange in January was the best performing in the world. Agriculture and manufacturing sectors were making impressive statements, and ICT, along with the creative industry, stood out. At the start of the year 2020, 2.9% was the projected GDP growth, but has since been revised downward. Coronavirus, which started in Wuhan, China, late 2019, with its attendant consequences, became the albatross of global economy as it forced the world to shut down. Trade, commerce, travel, entertainment, services, education, manufacturing and industry might have changed forever. COVID-19 concerns have rattled markets in virtually every sphere of life, and major commodity exporters like Nigeria were hard hit. It became evident that Nigeria was going to slide into a recession by the third quarter of the year.
It looks like we're going to escape going into a deep recession, and that is what we aim to achieve by designing the economic sustainability plan, rolling out various initiatives that is meant to create a lot of economic activity within the country, to increase consumption, to create jobs, and also to save jobs.
Other concerns for policymakers include rapid population growth, unemployment and underemployment, critical infrastructure, exchange rate and rising inflation, currently at 14.2% as of October 2020. GDP at the end of the third quarter of the year halved to minus 3.62% from minus 6.1% recorded in the second quarter of the year, indicating another step into recession within 5 years. Nigerian fiscal and monetary policymakers have been responding to negative growth through unprecedented measures to prevent any long-term damage to the growth prospects of the economy through rapid stimulation. The overall objective is to restore stability to the economy, a process that involves providing assistance to households and businesses that have been severely affected by the pandemic across sectors.
And the whole idea is to assist them to pay 3 months' salary of their staff who have been so that they will not retrench people. We don't want anybody retrenched.
Accordingly, the economy is expected to recover from the recession by the end of 2020, while the inflation is projected to moderate by the first quarter of 2021.
Experts say Nigeria must make hard choices in getting the economy out of recession as expected by the first quarter of 2021.
I think that development agenda that Nigeria has, I think, has to be tackled with gusto and vigor so that, the millions of jobs that the country needs can be created.
Despite the challenges brought up by the virus, authorities say it offers a unique opportunity to build a more resilient economy that is better able to contain external shocks while supporting growth and wealth creation in key sectors. In Abuja, Leah Kutung-Babatunde.
Recession, national plans to reflate the economy is the focus tonight on Tuesday Live. And Leah Kutung-Babatunde's report sets the tone for the program. Also on the program tonight, our phone lines will be open as we progress, and also you can also be part of the conversation through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. And if we're true to you through our phone lines, please, when making your point, turn down the volume of your television set to avoid the hallback. And please be very, very polite and don't use abusive language. We are very, very mature here, and our guests will deliver on your issues. Well, tonight I'm being joined by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngelale. Good to have you.
Always a privilege to be with you. Thank you.
Also tonight, we have a finance and investment analyst, Ni Akinsiju.
Pleasure.
Good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
In the course of the program, we shall have a couple of guests via Zoom from Lagos, Zaria, and in Abuja. As soon as the signals are up, we shall introduce them accordingly. Well, quickly tonight, also in keeping faith with the topic tonight, we shall be having a couple of reports dotting the landscape of Nigeria, Lagos, Kaduna, Aba, Port Harcourt, Maiduguri, and Oka, Anambra states. Well, tonight, we are not going to look at why we entered recession, but how to reflate the economy. We're in recession, how is it going to? So looking at basically what are those critical issues that government is doing. But quickly, let me begin with Ajuri. We are in recession, but one of the concerns is how should we sustain the momentum? What critical sectors of the economy should be given attention for a quicker result? We are already in it.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me start by saying thank you for this opportunity, and of course, thanks to our viewers for tuning in. Everything that is being done right now is what should be happening. When you look at the broad spectrum of interventions brought about by the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, you would agree with me that really no stone is being left unturned. I want to be very specific about what I'm talking about. Let's start from what is going on in terms of the preparation for the 2021 budget, and of course the supplement that is the Finance Bill 2020. In that, you have a series of modifications to existing tax laws, etc., that are going to ensure that we have the kind of economic space, for our MSMEs, for example, and our medium and large-scale companies to be able to free up some capital, to be able to, ensure that our people are being employed and we're able to expand opportunity across sectors, across the economy. Specifically speaking, within the finance bill, you have provisions that will now, for example, we're going to drop down the duties on the importation of tractors, for example, from 35% to 10%. We're dropping down the duties on the importation of vehicles that will transport goods from 35% to 10%. We're also dropping down the levy, rather, on vehicles transporting, of course, our people, cars, from 35% all the way down to 5%. All of this is to ensure that at a time when we have international oil benchmarks rising, and of course the impact on the pump price also going up, that our people have some kind of leeway in terms of making sure that the cost of transportation goes down. We believe that that is going to be very helpful in that regard. In addition to that, in terms of freeing up more economic space for our companies. We are also putting in a mechanism to ensure that companies who are, that have been paying their education tax contribution of about 2%, that of course goes toward the tertiary education, trust fund, TET fund, that companies generating an annual profit turnover of 25 million naira or less will be fully exempted from that education tax. That's for the first time. Also, we are cutting in half, by 50%, the minimum tax obligation of about 0.50% down to 0.25%. That is taxable on the gross turnover of companies that may not be, generating massive profits during an economic recession. So that is also going to be important for companies nationwide. And I think it's also very, very important to note that even as, these new interventions are being made in terms of the finance bill, already before now, you had the interventions from Finance Bill 2019, obviously dropping company income tax rates from, in fact, exempting all MSMEs across the country, particularly micro and small enterprises, from paying CIT. From paying, essentially allowing them to pay zero, whereas the medium-scale companies generating between 25 million naira and 100 million naira will now drop their tax rate down by approximately 10 to 20%. So I think so many things have gone on, and there's still so much more that can be done. But ultimately, what it comes down to is the injection of funds across the economy that would ensure that the baseline, the foundation stones of our economy are upgraded. Particularly, you're looking at power, you're looking at energy, and you're looking at MSMEs, direct interventions for our MSMEs. To that, we have established the Survival Fund. You would recall that at the height of this pandemic, really kind of at the inception of it, the impact of it in March, the President was very, very proactive in putting together the Economic Sustainability Committee, which put together the plan, which had put in place the Survival Fund, which is now essentially allowing us to provide payroll support. Now, as I speak to you, as of this evening, the most updated statistics are that we've been able to support about 35,000 MSMEs across the country, impacting directly over 200,000 beneficiaries across the country, with payroll support ranging from 30,000 naira a month to 50,000 naira in a month over the next 3 months to really cushion the impact of this, COVID-19, obviously, on the economy, and to really energize us out of the recession. In addition to that, the payroll support, we are also formalizing 250,000 MSMEs across the country, which up till now have been informal. We are going to walk them through the registration processes, pay for the registration processes within the Corporate Affairs Commission. And in addition to that, we're also providing 333,000 artisans across all states of the Federation with operations grants of 30,000 naira, which are not loans. They will not have to pay them back. I think when you look at the wide raft of interventions, and I haven't even gotten into 10% of them, and I'm sure we have more time on the program to go deeper into that, you would know that President Muhammadu Buhari is most concerned with the base of our society, the common men and women of this country who need support. They need it now, and they need it from government, and this administration is providing it.
Okay. Now, before I go into a very technical angle now, quickly, let's just bend backwards a bit. 2016, a lot are saying that we were almost sliding into recession, but we're bailed out of it. But now we have gone into it, and then it was attributed to the collapse of the oil prices. Now it's attributed to COVID-19 and other factors. What would have been the magic then and now?
Well, I think it's about first commitment and, of course, deploying the right policies. In 2014, we had 2014 specifically second quarter. Our GDP, after our revaluation of our GDP, went to a high of 6.53%. But I think just 2 or 3 months after, price of crude oil started sliding in the international markets, and at that first sight of such slide, GDP figures started falling too. In fact, went to 5.29 or something. But from that third quarter, by second quarter 2015, we had gone to 2.35. So we had actually lost more than 3 percentage points, 300 percentage points between second quarter 2014 and second quarter 2015. Thankfully, the President Muhammadu Buhari, was ushered into office, and in his first quarter after that, after the swearing in, the economy rebounded. The figures came back to 2.85 from 2.35, came back to 2.85 third quarter 2015, and on to 2.11 fourth quarter 2015. Then the crude oil price became even more, how do I call it, more volatile. It went to as low as $26, $27 at the point in time, and of course the Niger Delta crisis also commenced at that time, bombing of crude oil pipelines and all that, so much that our daily production that was set at 2.1 million barrels a day fell to as near as 500,000 barrels a day, and of course we are still dependent on crude oil sales for our foreign exchange mostly. So by the first quarter, all these activities, especially in terms of the double whammy as we put it, crash in oil price, crash in production, started reflecting on our figures, and we did a 0.36 decline in first quarter 2016, and a critical decline, in second quarter 2016 to a minus 2.06. Now, what that tells us, because I think there's also a need to compare what happened in 2016 recession, because that 0.36 in first quarter 2016 and minus 2.06 in second quarter actually ushered us into the 2016 recession. Now the difference that we have now is, while you had a steeper decline in 2016, you are actually experiencing a growth out of that recession, out of the valley, because your recession is like a valley, So we, rather than go steeply into the valley, we are now mounting out of the valley, because our figures in second quarter 2020 was 6.10%, negative 6.10. That was our figure second quarter 2020. Now our figure now is 3.62. Yeah. So it's actually, we have actually recorded a growth of 2.48%. That's a growth, So if the finance minister is saying we will be out of a recession in fourth quarter 2020 or latest first quarter 2021, I think she knows why she's saying that, And I think the whole thing also needs to be historically looked into. I mean, for those of us that follow the economic activities of this jurisdiction, I would say that it's as if the government was preparing for a time like this, because it is not just about policies that are being deployed now. It's actually about restructuring, making effort to restructure the Nigerian economy, over time. And that started since 2016. Don't forget, by 2016, we had the first social intervention programs, and that triggered the first effort to target inclusiveness in our economy. And if economy survives without deliberately creating or triggering inclusiveness of the poor and vulnerable, and formalizing them into the economy. So that started during that period. But more than that, you also have a relationship between the fiscal and the monetary authority, the government, the executive arm of government, and the central bank working together. In the last 3 years, I can tell you that I have witnessed a form of monetary authority activism that I have not recorded in Nigeria before now. One, the basic purpose of banking is to properly intermediate, between deposits and withdrawals. And in between is to direct funding to the productive sector. Over the last 30 years, and I've been in business over the last 30 years, I can tell you that that has not been the case with the Nigerian banking industry. The Nigerian banking industry had always been focused on two things: fast returns, fast turnover on sources, directed at any form of business. So the maximum, until lately, the maximum you could actually secure from a Nigerian bank was 90 days. If you are a big business, perhaps you can do 6 months. But when it's 6 months, they tell you it's going to create a burden, on their balance sheets. Now, going forward, we have seen between September last year and October this year has been a most historic creation of credits in the public space. Because between those 10 to 12 months, the central bank was able to create up to 3.9 trillion new credits, not to the oil and gas sector that it will usually go to, or to the trading sector that it usually goes to, but directed at the banking, at the manufacturing sector, at the agricultural sector. And these are the real sectors, at the mining sectors. These are what we call the real sectors, Now, a major figure that impresses me at this time too, in the figures we have, the third quarter figures we have, is the figures on construction. Construction had perennially, over the last 7 quarters, been negative, But we have seen, even during this so-called recession, we have seen construction come up from a 31% decline, to 2.51 growth. Now, what that tells you is that money, is being directed in that sector. And as the figures increases, it also tells us that infrastructural facilities, the hardcore infrastructural facilities are being built. Those are the reflections, of some of these figures.
Okay. Are you good?
No, if you want
to.
So there are still more to talk about.
Said, I'll go into technical issues. We're already on the technical issues now.
I want to look at it.
Ultimately, Nigeria has reeled out a couple of issues.
Yeah.
And you have come up with a lot of technical issues that really, but let's just oppose it. All these are geared, tailored towards reflating the economy, so that we don't further slide to what is called stagflation, right? Now, in all this, does it amount to a stability in terms of, in all, revenue generation to reflate the economy?
Well, I think
that's the question we'll be asking.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. And that's why I think it's really important that we focus in on what it is that is going to benefit our people from the current actions of this administration. If you look at the proactive steps taken through not just the public health side of things, but through the economic impacts of the implementation of the economic sustainability plan, you look at even just what happened today. Perfect example with the rollout of the auto gas program. In effect, as part of the economic sustainability plan, we have the National Gas Expansion Program, NGEP. What it involves is essentially a real pivot from, you know, the traditional focus on fuel, on oil, into gas, and how we can create both supply and demand networks that would ultimately employ the maximum amount of Nigerians and also reduce the burden on them in terms of cost of transportation, cost of logistics, cost of production. How are we doing that? With autogas, what you have now is a rollout of a program in which we are going to engage over 500,000 engineers over the next 90 days to essentially, we're going to train them for 90 days by the under the Nigeria Content Management and Development Board and the Petroleum Trust and Development Fund, PTDF. We're going to train them for 90 days. They're going to man 50 conversion centers nationwide across all states of the Federation, in which we are going to be applying these conversion kits. 1 million of them, free of charge. Our people will not pay a kobo for these conversion kits. Whether you have a new car, whether you have a Tukumbo, whatever it is that you have, you'll be able to bring it to these conversion centers. We're going to be able to apply, put in place the conversion kits so that you'll be able to have your, you'll be able to receive autogas, you'll be able to hold autogas in your car. And then, of course, we are going to do 1 million of those conversions by the end of 2021. We are saying it openly so that our people can really key into this opportunity. Now, it's one thing to be able to convert vehicles into autogas compliance. It's another thing to be able to create the supply side networks needed to be able to meet the demand that will be there once they are converted. And what we've been able to do in that regard is to say, look, aside from putting together these, conversion plants, right, we're also making sure that we are working with our marginal field producers to ensure that these fields where the gas will emanate from, that they are optimizing all of the gas that we're flaring, for example. We're ensuring that the gas that's being flared is going to be diverted through the mechanisms that will support the compression of natural gas that obviously creates the compressed natural gas, CNG, that is the autogas. Now, with autogas, it's extremely important for us to note that you have essentially half of the emissions in terms of the carbon footprint. And you're also talking about essentially a 50% cut on the current price of petroleum motor spirit. So it's going to be a no-brainer for the environment and for the economic livelihoods of all of our people. Whether you're poor, whether you're middle, whether you're wealthy, everybody is going to be impacted. And ultimately, when you are able to cut the cost of fuel, of energy, by 50% through the use of gas, not only are you creating an entire new ecosystem for employment in the gas development and distribution sector, but you're also ensuring that the movement of food products, the movement of all these other products across all sectors of the economy calm down, and obviously that's going to free up more liquidity and capital to ensure that our people are able to spend more money and, of course, be able to promote the operations of businesses in such a way that they can expand their employment roles. That is just one measure in the autogas program that was rolled out today. I want to just quickly mention, in addition to that, that we also have, aside from CNG autogas program, the liquefied petroleum gas program, which is really focused in on cooking cylinders. We know in this country we have millions and millions of our people in the rural communities across this country using kerosene, which is terrible for the environment, and of course for many families in the rural communities is not necessarily the most cost-effective way of going about consuming energy. So what we are doing is we are going to train 10 entrepreneurs in every local government area of the Federation to be able to manufacture cooking cylinders and other accessories. You're talking of, cooking stoves, burners, etc. So that once they have gone through the training, 10 in every local government, you're now going to have we're going to now attach them to foundries where they will be able to produce these cooking cylinders and accessories, and ultimately train and employ others to be able to create a widespread across all local government areas of the Federation production of these cooking cylinders, so that they will be accessible not just to the ministers and governors and wealthy people, but to those our vulnerable citizens in the rural communities. Okay. And we're very excited about the multiplying economic effect that is going to have in this country. Okay,
one of the worries by experts is that if price is stabilized, a lot will happen. But I'm told one of our guests, and indeed the Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, is joining us via Zoom in Abuja, Cletus Agba. Good to see you on Tuesday Live tonight.
Thank you.
A couple of steps have been taken by the government to reflate the economy from recession. Let's hear from you what you have in place.
Again, I'm not hearing you. It's not audible here.
Well, it seems the audio connection is not favorable right now. As soon as that is done, we'll get back to him. I'm also told that our guest in Kaduna, Muhammad Mutaka Usman, Professor of Economics, is also joining us via Zoom in Kaduna, Azaria. Hello, good to see you on the program. Now, the question I want to put up, one of the worry is if prices in all what government is producing, the senior president has reeled out, you have reeled out technical issues. If all this, the price stability is zero, nothing will work.
Oh, well, the price stability, or rather pricing, is a manifestation of economic activities, supply side of the economy and the demand side of the economy. Now, it's natural. If you are coming out of a pandemic like this, that one, the economies were shut down. It means that production had reduced. If production reduces, it translates to mean that supplies, that is what you have produced, would also have fallen. And because the number, if you were producing 1,000 items before, and you were only able to produce 200 items, it is just natural that your demand would likely to be higher than the numbers of items you have produced. And because of pressure on those little items, prices will go up. But it's the correction, of that scenario that is important. And that is why you are talking about reflecting the economy.
Yes.
So reflecting the economy in this essence would be about providing funding and, of course, incentives to the production arm of the economy. And not just the production arm of the economy, also to the consumption arm of the economy. And that is why the Survival Fund comes in. Companies that could not even pay salaries of their employees are now provided a sum between 30,000 and 50,000 every month for the next 3 months, so that they don't lay off. It becomes a critical situation where companies could not pay salaries and they are forced now to lay off their staff. It means the unemployment market becomes more populated.
Okay, let me just hold you there. I hear the signals with the Minister of State, Budget and National Plan is back. Let's see if we can restore that and sustain conversation with him, because it's not likely to be with us all to the program. Once again, Honourable Minister, good to see you on Tuesday Live. And the question basically is, what are those things in place, policy-wise, that are geared towards reflating the economy?
very much. I believe you can hear me now. We have quite a number of programs that we have put in place to reflect the economy. First and foremost, we have had to grant support to all the states in the federation just to ensure that they have enough funding to continue to run the states. So the bailout funds that they were given initially, the interest and prepayment that they ought to make, we have had to work with the central bank to get a moratorium for them, and payments are going to start from next year, say about April. In the area of agric, we're very much concerned about food availability for our people. And what we have done in this area is to create a fund of about 500 billion to be able to support agric. First and foremost is to protect the post-harvest losses. Currently, during production, it is estimated that about 50 to 60% of what is produced is lost during harvest, and inability to get this to the market. So we are constructing about 377 rural roads across the country in agro corridors just to be able to evacuate food that is produced to get them to the market. And this will also encourage agro value chains around these sectors. There is also a buyback guarantee for farm products that we have set up, just as much as we have that same fund for MSMEs. The SSA had spoken about the 75 survivor fund for MSMEs, but in total we have about 462 billion set up to support micro, small, and medium enterprises. Whilst the initial 75 are grants, the rest of it are loans at 5% interest rates. We are also working on a mass housing strategy. We also have a mass rural electrification and solar power strategy. In this area, we are committing about 140 billion to provide solar power across the country. The SSA has spoken about the national gas expansion. This is another program within the sustainability plan, where private individuals who are interested could have access to about 90 billion that is available for them to use in this program. We have the public works program for the 774,000 jobs across the 774 local governments in the country. We are also spending a lot of money in the maintenance of roads across the country. About 190 road sections and bridges, for which about 60 billion is being deployed. You recall at the last FEC, some of these roads were approved, those that are get to the limit of coming to the Federal Executive Council. Most others within the Ministerial Tenders Board have also been approved. Of course, there's the social intervention program, the conditional cash transfer, where Mr. President has also approved the addition of 1 million households to the 2.6 million that we currently have. The artisanal miners are also being encouraged, and there is a fund that has been put forward for them in this area. The Ministry of Water Resources also has a program around the public areas, markets, motor parks, to provide sanitation, that's water, soap, and all the disinfectants. And this is also to help in terms of hygiene and also reflate the economy. Generally, the whole idea is to put money into the economy. Why did we get into this recession? For the first time in the last 14 quarters, we had a huge contraction in the oil sector, a contraction of about minus 13.8%. If you look at the other sectors, you will see that year on year, there's a lot of progress that has been made, even though they are negative. And again, this is as a result of the shutdown that actually happened in the economy. Because when you talk about GDP, what is it? It's just the totality of the value of the goods and services. And once you had that shutdown, of course, nothing was being produced, nothing much was going on. So with the way and manner that the economy is now being reflected through the 2.3 trillion sustainability stimulus fund, and the policies and programs that we've also put with the Finance Bill 2020, we believe that by the end of the fourth quarter of this year, we should be exiting a recession. But I'd like Nigerians to know that this recession is not peculiar to only Nigeria. We have countries like Austria, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Russia, Spain, UK, the US, Norway, Italy, Netherlands. They are all in a recession. And in our own case, the negative GDP growth that we have of about minus 3 is much, much better than the envisaged minus 6 that we were expecting at this time. Whereas countries like the US have minus 32.9, the UK minus 20.4, France, I believe, is about minus 13.8, Germany is minus 10.1, Israel minus 28.7, Japan is at minus 7.8, and South Africa, our brothers here, at minus 50. We are waiting for their third quarter results. So all in all, I think that Nigerians shouldn't despair. We would ensure that the necessary releases are made towards this program. 500 billion has been kept aside in the special fund to fund these programs. Whereas while the rest of the balance is coming from programs through the Central Bank of Nigeria.
That perspective. Let's quickly go to Professor Muhammad Mutaka Usman, who is joining us via Zoom from Zaria. Professor Mutaka, if you can see me or hear me clearly, from what has been reeled out by the Minister of State and the SSA and NTA Institute, the investment analyst here, let's talk about participation. If in all this, the people who are meant to participate are not gingered, are not participating, what happens?
Thank you for having me. I hope you are hearing me very well. I think that's the problem we have in the country. But basically, the policymakers has reduced themselves to only listening to, has only reduced themselves to the figures. I want us to look at beyond the numbers because yes, there are interventions, and interventions are meant to ginger the economy. But the figures they are rolling out, when you go to the real sector, when you go down to the society, you find out the two different disconnect between the numbers and what they are saying in government. For instance, in the entire northwest, in terms of agric, because of the insecurity, there is nothing you can do about it. The outcome is devastating because they were prevented from going to the farm Some of them that were able to go to the farm could not evacuate the produce. So the intervention is more on paper, not on the ground. The second issue is that, yes, recession is a normal thing in all economic activities, that there should be downturn in any economy. But what do you do to maintain that economy to former level of productions? Simply GDP numbers does not reflect what the economy does once you don't go to down to the people who are supposed to justify your intervention. The third thing is to look at, yes, Nigeria has the potentials. Does that potential reflect within the numbers we are touting? If you take the level of unemployment, despite the long intervention, the social interventions that they were doing, they were saying that the numbers are reflecting in that. What is the outcome? The end of SARS crisis is justifications of these kinds of numbers that we are dishing out in most of the cases, because people are dissatisfied. People are not employed at that level. So in a recession, the benchmark of recession is that there will be high unemployment, and that's what is reflected. If you check the Nigerian Bureau for Statistics numbers, it shows high level of unemployment in the country. Yes, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, we are hearing you.
In that context, for any intervention to succeed, there must be an intense follow-up in terms of the feedback. What do we get from that intervention to do? And social intervention normally are not sustained plan. They are not sustained plan. They are stopgap measures in which you have to have national plan. I had to give it to the Ministry of Finance and National Planning. Yes, they have started the process of doing a national development plan. But that does not mean that at this level we can say the economy, yes, we can go out of recession by numbers, but the real economy does not reflect that the numbers we are seeing.
So, Muhammad Mutaka Usman, we'll come back to you to sustain other angles. But back here, Professor Mutaka has raised a couple of, but let me hinge on just two. What feedback mechanism to ensure that these things are working? Sustainability. Let me take you on sustainability.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, it's wonderful to hear from the professor, obviously an alternative perspective. And I think it's really important for us to understand that the easiest thing to do in an economic recession in any country in the world is to speak to cynicism. Why? Because there's suffering, because there's economic loss, because there's difficulty. If there wasn't difficulty, there would be no need to bring in interventions and stimulus packages and all the things that you see going on around the world. We know there are difficulties, but we want to be very clear about the fact that even though there are challenges, these challenges present opportunities, and they're real opportunities, and we are really taking them. So when we talk about, for example, the pivot from oil into gas, we now have an opportunity. When you have rising oil prices, for example, you now have impetus, you now have buy-in even from the public to be able to get those conversion kits into their cars and make sure that we create this alternative gas development and distribution, this off-take ecosystem that we're talking about. We see that as a major opportunity that we're going to walk away from this recession with. That's just one. If you look at, for example, what we're doing in, the Honorable Minister mentioned what we're doing in power. Right now, we know that we have, you're talking about the bulk of the nation's informal economy being in our rural communities across the country. These are off-grid communities, communities that are not on the traditional power grid. We now, through the Economic Sustainability Plan and through the investments that President Muhammadu Buhari has painstakingly made at a time of economic recession, at a time when money is hard to come by, he's now been able to put together a plan that is going to provide 5 million solar home systems for 25 million Nigerians living in rural communities across this country, targeting rural farms where you have a situation where, as the Honorable Minister mentioned, you have post-harvest losses, not just because of poor road infrastructure in terms of transporting your goods from farm to market, but also because of another factor. The lack of rural electrification has led to a scenario in which in these rural farms you do not have refrigeration capacity to be able to maintain your goods even after you produce them. We are now targeting these solar home systems, for example, in these rural farms so that they have the refrigeration capacity to drastically reduce post-harvest losses. Even as we are investing massively in having our youths going out to reconstruct rural road networks, as the Honourable Minister also mentioned, to be able to also cut down the cost of transportation and logistics for farmers across the country, and of course reducing post-harvest losses in the process. It's also important to note that within these interventions, the President and his team, of course, this plan engineered by His Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, clearly envisaged having multilateral partners, because they not only sought out but have embraced multilateral partnerships, so that there are multiple eyes watching the process, so that when we talk about, it's one thing to talk about a plan, it's another thing to implement it, especially given the history within this country. Understanding that, this President and Vice President said, look, we're going to bring on the World Bank, we're going to bring on the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, we're going to bring on the UN's Sustainable Energy for All program, and they are going to not only make fiscal contributions to the project, but because of the fiscal contributions and their partnership, they're also involved in the project oversight of implementation to ensure that when we say our people are going to have 5 million solar home systems to give them sustainable energy, not just in their MSMEs, not just in their farms, not just in rural hospitals and rural schools, but in their homes, that they are actually going to get those 5 million systems. So I think anybody who is suggesting, because anybody can make a generic claim that we're just talking figures and it's not on the ground. But if you ask the 500,000 young people who benefited from Empower, and the additional 400,000 that we're adding in Batch C, and then of course the President has just approved the expansion of the Empower program from 500,000 up to 1 million in next year, and it's captured in the 2021 budget. The President also very graciously approved the expansion of the homegrown school feeding program from the current 9 million school children, who you cannot tell me if you go to those communities that their families will not attest to the interventions of this government. It's not on paper. From 9 million up to 14 million. He's expanding it by 5 million children on the homegrown school feeding program. He has also, again, expanded the conditional cash transfer program by 1 million households. All of this is to not play politics or speak grammar. It is to make sure that our people, wherever they are in this country, are benefiting directly from the resources of this country.
Okay, I told you at the beginning of the program, at some point we'll take reports. Now, the other angle is benchmarking and feedback. When we come back from taking reports from Lagos, Kaduna, Aba, Niyi will react to benchmarking and feedback. Then we go back to the Honourable Minister for other perspectives and Professor Muhammad Mutaka. Let's take the first report tonight from Lagos.
The last data released by the National Bureau of Statistics on the performance of the nation's gross domestic product for third quarter 2020 shows a negative 3.62% to reflect as the second contraction for the year under review. Economic managers, although, have envisaged a likely drop in economic activities due to the sharp reduction in global oil price and the economic lockdown as a result of the novel coronavirus disease. As a way to absorb the shock and keep the economy afloat in the face of recession, the federal government's sustainability plan, aimed at sustaining businesses and creating conducive environment, plays a major role, while the Central Bank of Nigeria, in its monetary policy meeting, reduced rates from 13.5% to 11.5% in order to help boost liquidity in the system.
Right now, we need to support our small-scale businesses more than ever before, small and medium-scale businesses. According to the Central Bank Governor, more than 70% of these businesses have also already had drawdown on some of the monies and the packages Central Bank had put forward.
The COVID-19, which had a major impact on our foreign exchange earnings. It had a major impact on our revenue. It had a major impact on the global supply chains.
While Nigeria is not the only sacrificial lamb going through this financial difficulty caused by the global pandemic, economic watchers have expressed optimism on the nation's quick exit from recession, going by the developmental economic policies initiated by the government.
And as a result of these efforts and measures that were put in place, we saw a moderation in negative output to about 3.6%. And this is the reason the central bank, even the monetary and fiscal authorities are saying that we are cautiously optimistic that Nigeria may exit the recession, but during the fourth quarter, if we continue to push our interventions, particularly to the households and small and medium enterprises who actually consider a major fulcrum to development of our economy.
Our next stop is the report from Kaduna.
Enterprises can be categorized into 4: micro, small, medium, and large, depending on their turnover, financial capacity, workforce, as well as service delivery. The small-scale enterprise is the dominant and biggest, as studies show that 70 to 80% of the populace depends on such businesses for survival. Ibrahim Umar, a 32-year-old trader, says the business has been in the family, but today it has died a slow death.
Foreign companies like Chinese, they come to this shop and beg us to collect their stock. We are collecting drinks from them without giving them money until we sell and we give them the money back, unlike now.
Some of the traders say the year has been full of trials.
The business is not moving like before, because before actually early in the morning like this, I would have popped like this full glass like 4 times in the morning, but now actually I just popped 2.
Experts say 3 to 4 out of small enterprises die every year in Nigeria, and 9 out of 10 are discouraged from establishing their dream industries.
They need support, they need intervention, they need assistance, both from the government and most especially financial institutions.
Professor Abdullah Abubakar says these small-scale businesses help stabilize the economy.
For any economy to grow, for any economy to have stability, you need the presence of these businesses that serve as the buffer in between. Therefore, they are so important to the economy that they cannot be ignored.
Entrepreneurs are change agents in the economy. By exploring new ways of doing things and serving new markets, they move the economy forward.
From Kaduna, we proceed to Aba, Abia State.
Of Abia State is private sector driven, with industrialists, artisans and traders who drive the economy currently gnashing their teeth. They are weighed down by high inflationary trend, increase in rates of foreign exchange, epileptic power supply and deplorable road network. Other impediments include unstable foreign exchange and import duties, which are said to have increased by over 100%, with effects on the masses.
We're not finding things easy. Nothing is really moving. Not getting materials or getting wares from outside this country is a very difficult thing. The rate of duties has gone high by up to 400%.
The things you usually buy at a lower price is now higher. And what happens once you now finish your production, you calculate your expenditure and add it on top of what is being produced and then get your selling price and to make a little profit out of it.
Experts say increased local productions in agriculture and sustainable economic plans and policies are required to buoy up the economy.
It's something that requires a whole lot of activities, a whole lot of policies from government, and then productive efforts from individuals too. You have to look at the physical policies, you have to look at the economic policies, you have to look at the integration of these into the main budgetary process.
with proper implementation of government economic policies targeted at youth employment and empowerment through skills acquisition and current efforts to promote agriculture, Nigeria may well exit this recession earlier than expected.
Those were reports sustaining the conversation, and quickly we take a break. When we come back, the program continues.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women, and the most vulnerable groups in our society. These included a broad plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years, the creation of 75 billion naira National Youth Investment Fund to provide opportunities for the youths, and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Survivor Fund, through which government is A. Paying 3-month salaries of the staff of 100,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. B. Paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at the Corporate Affairs Commission. C. Giving a grant of 30,000 naira to 100,000 artisans and guaranteeing market for the product of traders. These are in addition to many other initiatives such as farmer money, trader money, market money, N-Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic.
Kaduna Polytechnic is 100 years. Centenary celebration, the institution is organizing events which include presentation of papers and inspection with the first department of survey established in 1920. Chairman of the occasion, Alhaji Yusuf Hassan, former chairman, Governing Council of Kaduna Polytechnic, guest of honor, Executive Secretary, National Board for Technical Education, MBTE. Chief host, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Malam Nasir Ahmad El-Rufai. Other invited guests include Vice Chancellor, Kaduna State University, Rector, Nuhu Bambali Polytechnic Zaria, Surveyor General of the Federation, Director General UNESCO Nigeria. Date, Wednesday, 2nd December 2020. Time, 10 a.m. Venue, Mem Hall College of Environmental Studies, Barnawa, Kaduna. Announcer, Kaduna Polytechnic Management.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned. And a recession national plan to reflate the economy is the focus tonight. And before we went on break, Professor Muhammad Mutaka raised a couple of concerns. The SSC on Public Affairs has reacted to some. And the other one he raised has to do with the fact that figures are being touted around. But also he talked about the need to benchmark, and structure is a very potent feedback mechanism. Let me allow Need to react to that before we quickly go to the Minister of State.
Thank you. I think if we are talking about benchmark, really, we are talking about figures. There's no way we can run away from it. And I don't want to agree really with the respected professor of economy, because for me, if we have to discuss either the economy or economics, we have to talk about figures, and we must have faith in the institution, that is responsible for the measurement, of all these indicators and all that. And I also try as much as possible to discourage cherry picking. I've found reason, to engage some other individuals on matters, especially where figures are taken to suit purposes and debates. I think it's not an appropriate approach. The recession we are talking about is about figures. We got here because the National Bureau of Statistics had said these are the figures, that had brought us to this point, and the Prof himself talked about the figures of the NBS relating to unemployment figures. So if we can believe in unemployment figures, which are negative, I think we should also be able to believe in the recession figures that are showing that we are on the growth path. Now, I like to go back to the 2016 recession when this social intervention program, or programs, I fondly refer to it as a suite of programs, was introduced. In 2010, Nigeria's population of poor and vulnerable was stated at 112 million Nigerians. By this same our NBS, by 2019, 9 years after, mainly driven by the activities and the impact of those social investment programs. The same NBS said we were at 82 million Nigerians. So which means in those 4 years, so much had been, those 3 years, so much had been done. It's still figures that we are talking about, well, in a jurisdiction that you still have 82 million poor, very poor, it's not as if it's a delightful prospect. You still have many poor people. So the target, and the president has said, is targeting moving out 100 million people. So until you have the last one person on that 100 million list, you cannot be comfortable, because you still have a poor person in the jurisdiction. So the feedback will still be, you still have to do more. So if we have 82 million, we have reduced from 112 million to 82 million. So the government will still be admonished to do more, so as to reduce from this 82, for instance, perhaps in the next 3 years to 50. Even at that 50 million, it's still not enough. The feedback to government will still be do more. That's my position on that. And even beyond the NBS figures, the World Bank itself, that is responsible for poverty head count, historically and globally, had also come out to say that by 2018, its own figures, that we had poverty rate had gone down, our population of poor people had come down to 79 million. These are figures that are declining figures, as it were. So to that extent, it is showing impact, on the population and the people. Now, so if we're talking about policies, we should also look at it from a two-way perspective. There's a social intervention that I said that's mostly from the fiscal perspective, and you also have the monetary intervention. If, for instance, the central bank had not, of course, directed banks to adopt regulatory, had not granted regulatory forbearances for the banks. We will have more businesses closing down now. But regulatory forbearances had to do with banks, please, because of the peculiar nature of what we have now. Can you restructure the loans secured through you by these businesses? You know, and of course, even allow the moratorium. The CBN itself allowed 1 year moratorium on interventions and loans they had given out to Nigerian manufacturers and farmers, you know.
Okay, go to quickly before we go to the minister.
Yeah, just to double down very quickly, you know, I think it's really important to note that when I can't speak for any other administration, I can only speak for the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. When we say we are going to, you know, expand a program, we are able to say we are expanding a program because a program exists. There's something on the ground to show for what we're talking about. Okay. So for example, now, if we talk about you know, access to credit, for example, we know that before this president and this administration came into office, to get a facility from anywhere, whether private, central bank, whether it's your deposit money banks, you know the kind of interest rate you will look at. You can't even begin to start the process, not to speak of finishing the process. It is this administration that has made available low-interest credit facilities to millions of farmers in this country. Is it not the Rice Farmers Association and many other farming associations that came out and admitted openly that it's this administration that created 12 million jobs in the agricultural sector alone over the last 5 years? Is that on paper, or are we not seeing that in the substitution of what used to be billions of dollars every single year in food imports, that we are now able to substitute with local production? Our food bill has gone down, which is why we have been able to most effectively manage the conditions of the country during a recession, as against what happened in 2014. I think what happens is, in this country, there's a tendency to have short memory. We forget what happened yesterday. In 2014, we were coming off of international oil price of 120 to between $100 and $120 per barrel. Immediately, the oil price crashed. I think it was about September 2014. Immediately, we couldn't pay salaries. We couldn't pay salaries to our civil servants. We could not even fund our budget. I think the Ministry of Works, whole Ministry of Works across the country, had 14 billion naira in its budget during that cycle. My point is that if you look at what has happened now, with an oil crash that was even worse than the one we suffered in 2014, that time it went down to about $28 per barrel. Under this COVID-induced crash, it went down to $12, where we were even losing money to produce, not to speak of making money on the oil. We were still, in those conditions, we were still able to pay salaries. You have not heard any worker in this country, in the federal civil service, saying that they were not paid their salary, that pensioners were not paid their pensions. You have not heard that. We've still been able to fund all of our major projects. All of our budgets are being funded to the tune of 50% budget implementation as of July, which is mid-year 2020. I think if we're being factual and we're dealing in fact and truth and not on emotions and sentiment, we have to acknowledge the difference between this administration and previous administrations, given the very difficult circumstances we're in. The president is still doing more than any administration that came before, even up to the 30 years dating from 1985 to 2015. I challenge anybody to compare the infrastructural development record of the previous 30 years from 1985 to 2015 to what has happened since 2015 to date, given even with the limited resources we've had available. Not to speak of social investment programs touching tens of millions of people that did not exist before 2015. So yes, there are problems in the country, no doubt about that. Nobody is sugarcoating that fact. But let's acknowledge that we have made unprecedented progress, and that even as we are not where we want to be, we are on the way there, and that is undeniable.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's quickly go to the Minister of State's Budget and National Planning. I believe he's still on Zoom with us. Two issues, Honourable Minister. One of it is a tweet that came in, and I want to pass that to you. It asked a very simple question. It has been addressed, but just for emphasis, you just need to address it. It's coming from Kiari Bimi. It says, my question is, what caused Nigeria's recession, and how did we recover from the Great Recession? That's one. The other aspect of it is listening to commentaries and one of the reports there. One of the resource persons talked about the fact that this thing will affect revenues and global supplies. what plans are there besides MSMEs in the country? What plans are there for the mega private businesses? Are there any interventions for them?
Last question. Mega businesses, yes, there are intervention funds. Like I said, under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, we have a program of about 462 billion that can be assessed by anybody in business. Even in the health sector, we have also special programs, about 126 billion in the health sector. Going back to Professor and the issue of numbers, I am glad that you spoke to that because while he was alluding to the fact that we are really not numbers, he was also defending his by using numbers. But I want to assure Prof that in Agric, for instance, in the Agric program, they've already done the biometrics of about 3.5 million farmers across the country. And like I said, there is about 562 billion that is available. Ngelele talked about 14 billion for Ministry of Works. I want to correct that. It wasn't 14 billion then, it was 13 billion. And what we had for 2020 is about 262 billion for Ministry of Works, even with the fact that we have had a lot of revenue loss. Prof. Ngelele also mentioned that we have released about 50% as at July. I just want to give an update that as at end of September, we have made 80% releases of all capital expenditure. Again, going back to Prof, the sustainability plan is a stopgap plan. It's not, it's for 12 months, and the plan expires in July. I am glad you did mention that we have started work on the medium-term national development plan and also the Nigeria Agenda 2050. The first set of plan, the 2021 to 2025, is being rounded up, and we have about 26 technical working groups in the various thematic areas, looking at the various sectors. Coming back to the issue of the recession, say what caused the recession? Like we did say, there was COVID. It started first as a health crisis, but gradually became an economic crisis because economies all over the world were shut down. Nigerians' main source of foreign exchange is oil. And so there was a glut in the market. Demand fell, supply was there. Hence, we had to sell our crude at about $12 sometime in April. Of course, this resulted in about 67% drop in revenue. And with the various sectors shut down, there were no economic activities going on. Hence, technically, we'll say we're in a recession because once you have a negative GDP in 2 quarters, then we will say you are in a recession. But in a clear signal of improving economic conditions, 17 activities recorded positive real growth in the third quarter compared to 13 in the second quarter. At the same time, 36 of the 46 economic activities did better in quarter 3 compared to quarter 2, 2020. Like I did say, the main area where we really lost it was the slow economic growth in the oil sector, which contracted by 13.89% year on year. And this is the largest decline in this sector in the last 14 quarters. So all in all, like I said, I think we are doing well. But again, I want to assure Nigerians that with this sustainability plan and indeed our budgets going forward, we are strengthening our monitoring and evaluation mechanism. We signed to this to the World Bank and IMF for the sustainability plan, and we are currently working on a web app which we are christening the iMark web app. And this has geospatial capabilities that Nigerians can download on their phones, on their Android phones, and help us to monitor projects across the country. Because we believe that citizens are the best to tell us the quality of the roads that we are building, the quality of the rails, the hospitals, and whether work is done or not. And because of this geospatial technology that is involved in it, a citizen can take a picture and it will come to us with the latitude and longitude of that project. So it tells us on the face of the earth where that project is with pictures. And with this, we are able to do more effective and efficient monitoring, even though there will still be the human side of it where we have to do visitation to projects across the country. Thank you.
Let's go to Professor Mahmoud Mutaka Osman. Now, looking at this, I imagine the whole thing, the centrality. What should the state government be doing? This recession is about Nigeria, but there's this centrality about the entire thing. What should the state governments be doing? And also, is it also possible that you have said a recession is a normal thing? Is it also possible that during a recession, we could pick opportunities within all these difficulties?
We can take, like we said, Nigeria is a federation. You see, this is the problems we have. We have institutions. For instance, the national planning is supposed to coordinate the national planning process within the state. That is what is called National Planning Board. We're supposed to meet with all the states because the macroeconomic policies is its exclusive list. So therefore, you have to coordinate those with the states. But the National Planning Board are not meeting to take, because it's chaired by the vice president. So therefore, that body will now coordinate the process of macroeconomic policy within the federation, and you get out of recession. Yes, when we said numbers, we are working with numbers for economics. There is no economics that will not work with numbers. What we are saying is that, despite the fact that this, what you are saying about the numbers, does it tally with what we are aiming at? And the main issue, all those social intervention, the National Economic Sustainability Plan, as stopgap measures. What are the national goals? That's why I said I'm happy with what the Ministry of Budget and National Planning are doing, because they have now back to the planning process, which is a long-term plan to adjust, to evaluate your budget within that national plan so that you can backtrack and also get the feedback on the performance of the economy. But by just this palliative, we never take our economy to anywhere. But the fact is that, yes, we have to do the best we can do for our economy. How do we do the best for our economy? Is to coordinate all the activities of government. Because even the COVID-19, yes, there is COVID-19. It crashed does our expenditure reduce within that COVID-19? So we have to look at all those things together and then assess what the country is going on in terms of economics. And in recession, there are two things: high rate of interest rate, high level of unemployment. So how do you do it? High rate of interest rate.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pro. We're listening to you.
So for that, you have to work hard in terms of coordination, in terms of getting feedback.
Can I quickly respond to Prof on
on that basis, you will say that coordination within the economy in terms of the monetary policy and the fiscal policy can come out with the basic things that are required in terms of moving the economy forward. In terms of all those palliative, because you have to address the real sector. The real sector is the ones that, because the rate of interest rate will not allow individuals to borrow, despite the central banks are doing their interventions in terms of those sectors. But it's not enough, because the money market will not respond to that as it were. So also in the stock market. So the housing market also must be reflected within that context. So in a whole, there must be a coordination between the monetary policy and fiscal policy side, and in such a way that the state are brought in. Because if you want to expand the economy, the state can bring you back, because that policies would have to reflect both the state level and the federal level as well. And therefore, at the lowest level, where the economy can pick up at the local government level, there has to be reintegration from the local level, whereby they can move. Therefore, without that, whatever you do at the surface will not go down, and therefore the level of poverty will continue to increase. The numbers are there. Thank you.
Quickly go to the Minister of State's Budget and National Planning. I indicated to respond to one or two issues raised by the Prof.
Talked about coordination with the states, and then he talked about the Joint Planning Board. I want to let Prof know that we meet every month at the Joint Planning Board level with all the states. And even with the sustainability plan, we had these discussions at the Joint Planning Board. We engage the Governors Forum. We had discussions at the National Economic Council. At the current, with the current medium-term national development plan going on, all of the states are involved in the 26 thematic groups. They have 2 representatives each. We have the ALGON,
I'm a member of technical working committee, so I know that.
In the various technical working groups, because we know that there is no federation without the subnationals. And that is where the rubber meets the ground. And that is why they are involved in the process. So on a monthly basis, the Joint Planning Board meets with all the commissioners. And then on a monthly basis, we also meet at NEC. With the Vice President only attends the National Joint Planning Board meeting once in a year after the technical sessions have been held. But he's involved, he is the chairman of NEC. And tomorrow, again, we'll be briefing the Governors Forum on the work that we have done with the medium-term national development plan. So it's not true that we are not carrying the subnationals. In fact, with this planning that we are having, the government is just being an enabler. Like you see, Mr. President approved that the chairman of the steering committee is from the organized private sector. And if you look at the steering committee leading, you have the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, you have NESG, SMIDIN, all the various diversities that we have in the country. We have ensured that we have carried everyone along, because we are not planning for one section of Nigerians, but for all of Nigerians.
Quickly, we'll take a couple of reports. When we return, we'll be taking our conclusive thoughts on this issue. And the focus, once again, is recession, national plan to reflate the economy. We now take the report from Port Harcourt.
Amidst the current economic recession ravaging the nation's economy, Nigerians have prescribed a host of policies as necessary measures to jumpstart the economy. While citing the COVID-19 pandemic as a major factor responsible for the recession, stakeholders noted that there is need for the federal government to offer more tax cuts to promote investment, while also introducing measures to increase demand for goods and services. They opine that a shift in focus from lump sum taxation to consumption will create the appropriate environment.
Most of the inflation we are experiencing in the economy are basically import-driven inflation. Preference for foreign-made goods, therefore we consume. And by the time you start consuming foreign goods, it means that you are exporting your job creation to the foreign land.
This COVID-19 have actually opened our eyes that every country will be self-dependent. Because if today those people here can get everything they want within Port Harcourt and the River State, I don't think they should go looking for foreign things.
My experience, the things are high, but the way they take by, and now it's not the same. You carry 2,000 naira come market, say make you take and buy small, you know rich.
Efforts such as the National Survival Fund, free business name registration for 250,000 beneficiaries, creative industries financing, our Central Bank of Nigeria initiative to provide single-digit financing are all government inputs geared towards restoring the economy. However, stakeholders say more still needs to be done. Keen watchers further suggested support for the MSMEs and ensuring effective and urgent implementation of economic sustainability plan through the release of funds to all sectors of the economy.
We proceed now to the report from Maiduguri.
Borno economy has suffered setback by more than a decade years of insurgency, which virtually grounded businesses in addition to the recent COVID-19 lockdown, with many firms and businesses running on a deficit, leading to increase in demand, which is higher than supply. Despite these challenges, people of the state depend on government economic policies to strive and make ends meet.
It has come to the field that we are supposed to put things into practice and to make sure we stand firm to defend this cause.
With the recession or without recession, the insurgency has already crippled the economy of Borno State, but His Excellency, the Governor of Borno State, is trying his best to the survival of Borno people.
Borno State government has made deliberate effort at constructing shops, business arenas, resettlement of IDPs, among other opportunities towards improving livelihood of the people and the economy.
The 2020 revised budget looked at the incentives in terms of tax reliefs to taxpayers. It also incorporated the issue of palliatives in terms of waiving the required procurement conditions for small and medium-scale enterprises so that emergency procurements could be effected. These are palliatives that were informed by the COVID-19 pandemic. To have these elements supporting or cushioning the effect of the recession in 2020.
Having built resilience through the economic hardship created by the lingering insurgency in Borno State, the people and government said they are prepared to face, pull through and prevail against recession with the help of the vibrant economic policies put in place by Governor Zulum-led administration.
And our last report tonight is from Oka, Anambra State.
Nigeria, like other global economies, has witnessed economic challenges that have hit many lives and businesses real hard. These recent difficulties are attributed to the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, which induced fall in private investment occasioned by uncertainty, general drop in economic activities, a situation that has impacted means of livelihoods negatively. Also, the recent hike in the price of petrol and high exchange rates, resulting in continuous increase in the cost of goods and services, are some other factors the country is said to be facing.
So TV that we sell like 48,000 as of last week, about 32 inches that we sell like 48,000 last week. The last price currently is 51,000. So you can imagine the difference.
One word or other,
We are trying our best to convince customers. And then the little we can do, instead of staying idle or something like that, we do it.
Dollar, they're very costly now, they're very high. Banks are not giving dollar again, and people are no more traveling. So that is normal way to get the dollar.
Some economists, while applauding the federal government for economic stimulus and sustainability packages rolled out for SMEs earlier in the year, opined that Nigerian government needs to do more to cushion the adverse effects of the economic downturn.
It's a question of survival. And of course, you know that because you have this recession, profitability is affected, because of lower consumer demand or spending.
Nigerians, especially business owners, are advised to always make the right decisions to survive these temporal challenges.
I said Oka was last, but Abeokuta is the very last report.
From the ravaging impact of the coronavirus global pandemic and the attendant drop in oil prices in the international market, Nigeria, like a few other economies, has slid into a recession, having recorded a year-on-year 3.62% contraction in her economy. The impact of this contraction is rather acute on the local economy, where hike in cost of goods and services and the attendant drop in purchasing power is affecting volume of trade in the informal sector.
The interest rate is high and inflation is devaluing whatever reserve people have.
When you look at the situation in 2020, productive activities reduced significantly.
Praising federal government's monetary and fiscal policy measures in response to the recession, these economic experts believe that the economy be out of danger soon, while describing current efforts to diversify the economy through agricultural value chain and the mineral sector as a step in the right direction. The stakeholders believe that government will inspire more productivity among Nigerians by cutting excess government spending, building more infrastructure, and encouraging sub-regional growth.
That's the last report there, and after the reports, let's go to Professor Usman. Professor Usman, yes, there are problems, and when the problems arise, solutions are proffered. But naturally, in Nigeria, just like you have stated, recession is a normal thing, and the minister has also talked about the fact that this recession is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. But some Nigerians always want to see from the perspective of government, because we're in recession, government is not doing well. So there are problems, there are solutions. What kind of attitude should Nigerians generally put in government? Those not in government should be putting up at this time.
The trust in government, because for anything that you do, it doesn't happen overnight. There must be a sustained effort, and there should be openness in terms of government to see what government is doing to the people, and people should be allowed to say their own dissenting voice, so that can be improved. So I think attitude, because there is no government in this country that came with high support of the majority of Nigerians like this government, and therefore they should sustain that relationship with the people. Without that, there is no way any government policy can achieve its goal without the backing of the people. And therefore, as individuals, as countrymen, they must be informed, well informed about anything that government is going to do. And also acknowledge whatever failure we have, that we can improve, because nobody is fallible. Anybody can make mistakes. You can improve on that. Anything that you found that you are doing very well. So I must give a credit on this government to say that we have to go back to that long-term national development that will take us to the promised land. Because if we have sustained that national development plan that we started 1, 2, 3, that now maybe at the level of 5, 6, we would have been better placed than where we are now. So I think information to the people, government should open its mind to get whatever they got wrong, they should be corrected and move ahead. I think that's what the key words there.
One, Professor of Economics, it was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you.
Now let's go to the Minister of State, Budget and National Planning. Honourable Minister, you have assured Nigerians twice, and you have even taken a bold step to say Nigeria may even go out of recession before the end of the year or first month of next year. Now, where we are is about the fact that we are in it. Government is doing everything to apply the shocks, and the people are also available there. I earlier asked this question to Professor Usman, but let me ask it differently. What manner of approach should Nigerians be participating in all these programs? Government have made programs available. If Nigerians don't participate, will it work?
To participate for it to work. The programs are not meant for government. The programs are meant for Nigerians. And that's why with COVID-19, one of the things that we did this year through the Open Government Partnership, which I co-chair, with the civil society organizations, we've had several webinars so that they can also help us to reach out to Nigerians. This is just alluding to what Prof has said, that we need to communicate with our people, we need to carry them along, and we need to get feedback from them. One of the mechanisms that we have really used this year is using the internet, using connectivity. We have reached out to a lot of Nigerians virtually, both Nigerians home and Nigerians in diaspora. In fact, in July, I had a high-level, high-table webinar with Nigerians, including the World Bank and the International OGP, because of our commitment to transparency. We will continue to let Nigerians know what it is that we are doing. We are not infallible. We would take any feedback that we get, and we will use them positively, because we are in government not for ourselves, but we're in government for our people. So I encourage Nigerians not to despair. They are used to a part of the things that have happened in the past, where they believe that the programs are there and it's not meant for them. A lot of the conditionalities have been reduced to ensure that more and more Nigerians are covered. And like I said, with these programs that have been put in place, we have been able to negotiate good interest rates on the facilities that are available. And it's single digit at 5%, and with a moratorium up till April next year. So they need to take advantage of it so that it works for us all.
Honourable Minister of State, Budget and National Planning, Cletus Agba. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight. Thanks for your time.
Honourable Minister.
To the studio, where we have heard from our guest off studio. Now, everybody will say, moving on, moving on. Let's move on now. We have heard everything. Recession is normal, but our focus today was reflecting the economy so that we don't slide into what we call stagflation or depression. Which is the right word now?
Stagflation. We are in the state of stagflation now because we already, our production is depressed and we are experiencing high inflation rates.
Okay. The Minister of State appealing to Nigerians now is one leg of it. Now, from your projection as an investment expert, if all this works and we are out of recession, how can we have a mind picture of what the economy will look like across board?
Well, I always go back to 2016. The truth is that when we have experienced this stagflation before too, between 2016 and 2017, especially when in January 2017, our inflation rate was as high as 18.7%. Presently, it's 14.23%. You know, so which means there's still a 4-5% difference. You know, with what we experienced at the peak of recession in 2017, particularly food inflation. Food inflation is 17.8% now. October figures. In January 2017, it was 23.5%. You know, so what I'm trying to say is we have walked this path before, and we had emerged from it stronger. So the scenario, as it were, would be once we exit this recession, and we can exit this recession by just some increases in some sectors. You know, if agri, for instance, from the 1.3 it has done, goes up to 2.4, it's a boost. You know, if construction at 2.48 can go to 3 point something, it's a boost. So we would net off the 3.6 that we are in now. So I'm saying it is easy to exit. Yes, the reality is still that we have people that are poor, we have people that are challenged in terms of employment and employment opportunities, you know. But as we exit the recession, it means that normalcy is returning, you know. It means that production and productivity is being enhanced. As production and productivity are being enhanced, opportunities for employment, you know, are being created. As opportunity for employment are being created, production and productivity, cost of doing all those things are also reducing. They will start reflecting on prices. And of course, just as the inflation rate at the 2017 January went to 18.27 that I said, fell to a low of 11.2% in 2019. Okay. You know, it would also fall. This 14.2, we expect anyway that even November figure will likely go up. But as we reverse, you know, from the negative to the positive, it will start falling too. It had fallen before. You know, it fell in the thick of the 2016 recession. Both food inflation, which constitutes more than 50% of our inflation index, you know, but food inflation fell from that 23 that I spoke about to a low of 12.5%. You know, so the whole thing is one. We should persevere. The average Nigerian must continuously look for opportunities within his area of interest. And if you look at the economic sustainability plan, it has served the purposes of everybody. You know, both the very poor, the vulnerable, the medium, the small and medium scale operator, and the large scale operators. Everybody. It is what I call a handshake between the fiscal authority and the monetary authorities. So as the CBN is saying to banks, reduce interest rates, do restructure loans. They are also saying to poor people, you can access this thing at very low rate. In fact, in the case of the targeted credit facility, you don't need any collateral.
Okay, now, in conclusion, some want to say recession is their thing, it's not our thing. these policies will not work. Playing politics with it. Should we even play politics with recession?
Well, look, I think we live in a political nation. We play politics with almost everything imaginable, including, unfortunately and very sadly, even the deaths of people. That's not good. And I think that we can be better than that, and we can do better than that. And I believe that ultimately we will be better than that. But let me just say that there's nobody in this country that is mistaken about the reality that we are in a recession. There's nobody in this country that is mistaken about the reality that we have poverty, that we have unemployment, and that we have major challenges. What we are being very clear about with our people is that by our very nature as a people, we're not a defeated people. In fact, we're conquerors. Everywhere we go in the world, every country we go to in the world, across every sector imaginable, we dominate. That's who we are as Nigerians. That's what we do. So this moment now where you have, economic volatility, turbulence around the world, and the challenges brought and all of that, I think we've shown, even on the public health side of our response to COVID-19, what we can do and what we can achieve when there is a level of consensus in the country, boasting one of the best, or one of the, not best, but lowest death rates in the world. Particularly relative to our population. So with that said, I think when we look at the overall scheme of things, aside from the direct investments we're making in oil and gas and power and housing and MSME interventions and all of that fantastic stuff, there's really a point that undergirds all of that, which is that we are betting on our people. We believe that if we put money, if we get capital in the hands of our people, that our people are the best engine for immediate term, medium term, and long-term economic growth. And we also believe that we must partner the private sector. If you look at that power plan, what I did not get to mention earlier very quickly is that we are providing between 5 and 10% low-interest credit facilities to these firms, the 140 billion, that is going to allow the private sector to drive the process of project implementation, obviously with the oversight of multilaterals in conjunction with the Nigerian government. That's important because our people are now going to be assured that you have two options within the power scheme, rural power scheme, the 5 million systems. One is mini-grid, which is essentially going to serve, more of a community-based system where people are going to be able to pay between 1,500 naira and 2,000 naira in a month for sustainable 24 hours power. And then the option two is basically to have an individualized solar home system where you will pay 4,000 naira per month approximately over the course of 3 years, and then after the 3 years, paying that monthly over that 3-year period, you will now own the system. So in everything we're doing, we're partnering the private sector. And the last point on that is within the Finance Bill 2020 that we've been talking about, we have also provided tax reliefs to companies who are donating to what? The Coalition Against COVID-19, COCOVID. COCOVID is preparing to launch a 150 billion naira, unprecedented 150 billion naira scheme for vocational technical education for 4 million young Nigerians over the next 5 years. When you're talking about carpentry, plumbing, masonry, and all of these other things, we're going to be able to fund, facilitate the vocational technical education of our young people all across this country through our partnership with the private sector and what government is actively doing to incentivize the private sector's participation in those efforts. And I think President Muhammadu Buhari and this administration deserve so much credit for everything that they've done in this plan and everything they will continue to do until the expiration of this administration in 2023.
Well, at this point, I must say, gentlemen, Ni Akinsiju, it was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight.
My pleasure, as always. Thanks so much.
Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngalale. Always a pleasure being on the program.
It's been humbling. Thank you.
That's it on Tuesday Live tonight. We looked at recession, national plan to reflate the economy. It's about you, it's about government, and together all this will work. That's it on the program. On behalf of all of us, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Lives are in your hands while you drive. Protect yourself and others on the road. Road Matters, shown on the network service of the NTA. Join us.
Hello, it's a warm welcome to Sports Ray, reaching live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I'm Gift George.